Okay, thank you. Thanks all for coming out here. This is the second Fireside chat of this afternoon. We just had one with 3 founders of companies. Fortunate they were really technical, so we had great technical conversations as well. We'll have now conversations with 3 CTOs who are actually also founders of companies. So probably we'll have similar style of conversations, but we'll dive maybe a bit more deeper into tech. In case you don't know me, I'm Werner Vogels. I'm also a CTO, in this case from a bookshop around the corner. Let's go. Oh, and also, if you guys haven't figured this out, you're being filmed, or we're being filmed. We're being streamed back to the Loft in San Francisco, where there's an opportunity that if you're in San Francisco, you can go there for architectural advice, for courses, things like that. This is a model we hope to replicate in other places as well. So keep an eye on that. And also always keep an eye on what's called the AWS Activate program, which is there to help startups become successful. There's great offerings also from our partners often in those programs. So if you are working for a startup, please check it out because it will, you will have great benefit from it. My sequence is otherwise, but that's okay. Good. No. Well, yeah, there were only 3 options, were there? Yeah. Can I invite Seth Proctor of NewDB on stage? Hi, Seth.
Great
Pleasure.
to see you.
Have a seat, man.
Thank you.
Yeah. NewDB.
Yeah.
Man, who wants SQL?
Who wants SQL? Everyone. SQL's the new, like, NoSQL.
Okay.
SQL's back in. It's totally cool.
Yeah. Okay, so give me the 30-second pitch on the kind of stuff that NewDB does that other SQL databases don't.
Absolutely. So NewDB is a SQL database, fully relational, kind of all the gnarly, heavy lifting, multi-way joins, big transactions, complicated analytics that you could do with an Oracle or something you can do with NewDB. But it's designed around a fundamentally new peer-to-peer distributed architecture. So it's designed to scale out on demand. It's designed to use only the resources you need to run multi-region and to be active everywhere so that you can solve latency problems, data residency problems, kind of other interesting things people care about. Okay, that's cool. Multi-region.
So first of all, you guys launched a new product recently?
We did, yeah. Yes. A new release of our product last week.
And that had very specific features.
It did have very specific features, yes. In the same vein of who needs SQL, the people who need that get really excited when you say you've updated the SQL optimizer, new indexing capabilities, optimizations for running hybrid models to be able to do real-time analytics on your operational data, some really core architectural features like that, yeah. Okay.
You guys are also well known for sort of the policy-driven automation stuff.
Absolutely.
So tell us what that means.
To me, what it means is, as you're building increasingly complicated systems today, the way you make them scale is by increasingly not specifying every detail of how you do deployment. And that's a lot of what I saw in your keynote this morning, is trying to describe containers, automation, how you assemble things declaratively. And so we're really focused on how do you run distributed architectures by specifying your SLAs, by specifying the problems you're trying to solve, and let us take care of running and maintaining that and kind of using resources as effectively as possible for you. Okay,
so tell me about the SLA side of things. So what does that mean? On which dimensions do you give SLAs, or on which dimensions ask customers for SLAs?
So today, the SLAs are focused more on questions like how many independent points of redundancy do you want? Kind of how large are you willing to let a database scale before you want to cut it off because your budget's limited? What kind of instances do you want to run, because you may be running in a mixed model and you want different kinds of instance types because you're solving different problems on the same database. As this feature matures, it will let you specify things like what kind of transaction rates do I want, what kind of security policies do I need in place, where do I need to make sure things are running or make sure things are not running. One of the things you did recently that's awesome is you opened a data center in Frankfurt. And anyone who cares about international data security issues, the canonical example is always German citizens' data, and now we're actually doing those demos. So that's really cool stuff.
Okay, we'll get back to that in a minute. But SLAs in your case mean it's more about performance and how you, let's say, automate things, much more than that you would do different engineering for particular customers.
Yeah, I mean...
Because I've always, in our case of SLAs, you only get one SLA because you build this for 100% availability. You don't build it for 99.95. You build it for 100%. And so everybody gets the same SLA because technology-wise you don't do anything else. SLAs are much more often a legal document than that they are an engineering document. But in your case, SLAs are true engineering sites because of, or at least it's performance specifications.
Yeah, exactly. So in our system, the developer sees a single logical database, no matter how it's running. So there's no sharding, there's no kind of active-passive models, it's just a database. So operators are free to decide what are they trying to solve, what are they trying to optimize for in terms of resource management, in terms of failure models, and how do they focus on saving costs.
Okay. Now, coming on to the interesting topic of data residency. Why is that such a specific thing that you guys address? Is there architecture, is there engineering that helps with that? Yeah,
I think a lot of it is in our architecture. What's been really interesting to me over the last few years is as people are building systems that are running across multiple geographies, they're increasingly concerned with what happens in terms of the legal issues in those different geographies. And so Germany's the great example because German laws are so specific about what can happen with their citizens' data. And so when you want to provide a service that is globally available and appears to have the same information and the same capabilities everywhere, you have to think about how you do that while at the same time protecting all those individual laws about where things live on disk. And then later being able to prove through audit that you actually maintain those laws. And that's something that our architecture is really uniquely suited to be able to support.
Okay. Tell us about what there is in that specific architecture that is there to help that.
Sure. So the architecture is built around a peer-to-peer model. So there's complete independence. There's no master of anything. There's no central point of coordination. Those peers are running in one of two models. They're running either in memory or they're focused on disk. The in-memory peers are where we're having SQL clients connect to the system, driving transactions, where we're enforcing kind of all the consistency and atomicity rules. But then we think about data durability as a separate concern. And so we're really not optimized to worry about IOPS on disk per se. We're also not really concerned about where the data lives on disk relative to where you can actually drive transactions. And so for us, it's much more about how do you bring things into caches very efficiently, have these peers work together well, and then separately you worry about where the data may live in one or more locations on disk.
Okay, so in a multi-region model, what are your biggest challenges?
Well, I think there are a couple big challenges. One of them is just cutting down on complexity. I mean, it gets so complicated because often multiple regions means multiple people, or in large organizations means multiple teams that are administering the same systems. And so we're very focused on trying to simplify the tools, simplify the APIs, make that easy to work with. Certainly, from a systems point of view and an architectural point of view, we have all of the classic challenges of distributed systems, focusing on what happens in the failure modes, trying to minimize the amount of communication on the network so you can really take advantage of virtual systems, you can take advantage of public infrastructure and really run efficiently. And so that's a lot of asynchrony, that's a lot of optimism in our system, that's a lot of understanding how to reason about the system at all times so when failures do happen, you know you're still a consistent database.
So given all that complexity, does that mean that you run the databases for your customers? Or is it that you hand over the software to your customers to run their own databases? So
we hand over the software to our customers, and they can run it anywhere. Obviously, we encourage them to run it on Amazon. It's a perfect environment for software like this. But we hand it over to them, and that's part of why we're so passionate about making it as simple as possible to work with.
Okay. Tell us what a typical deployment looks like. Is there a typical deployment?
Right, I was going to say...
I mean, also on the AWS side. I mean, You guys use C3 8XLs at the minimum, or?
In the vein of the last 2 days' keynotes, atypical is the new typical,
Okay.
Or the new norm or something. No, I mean, I think there is no typical deployment. I think there are customers who come to us that are looking to do some very simple things just around redundancy, around being able to run active in a couple availability zones or in a couple regions for small throughput, but just reliability. We have customers who talk about kind of familiar workloads. At the end of the month, there's a lot of activity. At the end of the quarter, there's a lot of activity. When a game starts, there's a lot of activity. You know, there are all those events when you on demand want to spin up a lot of resources and then shut them down when you don't need them.
Okay. So what's your typical instance size?
The typical instance size varies a little bit, and that's part of what's nice about this architecture, is that you can actually run with mixed instance sizes.
Okay.
Certainly, the R3 instances are great for us because those are memory focused, and so we're really able to do things on that memory-centric side of the architecture really efficiently. And then we can spin up different instances that are focused on storage, or if we're trying to do analytics at the same time we're doing operational data, we can spin up. You know, I'm really eager to try some of the new C4 instances and see what you can do with those.
Okay, cool. Especially because they are network optimized to read and write towards EBS, so that's actually a great architecture.
Yeah.
Some people that have built, let's say, global spanning SQL servers had to butcher SQL to be able to make that work.
Yeah.
You guys have not done that?
We have not done that. No, this is real SQL. We have customers taking incredibly complicated applications off of Oracle, DB2, SQL Server, and just putting them onto our system, and they're working.
Okay. So let's talk a bit about your company, just from, say, a founder perspective.
Sure.
How big are you guys?
We're about 60 people at this point, which for a startup feels great. For a database, it's tiny, but you know we're growing.
Okay. Something that I've asked the founders in the previous session is, what's your ratio of salespeople versus engineers?
Our company is very heavily engineering focused.
Yeah.
I would say more than half the company actually is focused on engineering.
Okay, cool. You guys took investment?
We did, yes. A couple rounds of investment, yeah.
And so, yeah, really congratulations on
Thank
that,
you.
by the way. And especially because it's a former founder of Informix, I believe, that actually supported you guys there. What are you using the money for?
Well, we're using the money in large part for continued development of the core. We're building out some really interesting capabilities going into 2015 that are really kind of stressing the limits of what a traditional database can do. We're also using it to be able to grow out, as you said, kind of that sales and marketing piece as we focus on increasing number of enterprise and sales opportunities for the company. Yeah.
Given all the announcements that we've made in the past, let's say, 2 days, is there anything particular that excites you?
Well, there are a couple things that excite me. I would say Lambda is just awesome. I mean, I saw that announcement this morning, and I just got giddy. I mean, I'm really looking forward to playing with that. I think that kind of asynchronous programming is absolutely how we think about design, and it looks really cool.
Okay,
it looks really cool.
Cool. Seth, thank you very much for being on stage here.
Werner, it's my pleasure.
Thank you for talking with us.
Thank you. Really enjoyed
Great.
it.
Thanks. Andrew and I have talked before on stage. Thanks for being back here, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
PagerDuty sounds like an awful word. Yes?
Yours at Amazon, yes.
It is at Amazon. Well, yeah. Everybody likes to ship. Nobody likes to operate. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So tell me how you guys got started. Oh, first, maybe tell the audience what you guys do.
Yeah, sure.
We have a massive booth here, by the way, guys. A really nice present.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, we've been working on it. Yeah, so PagerDuty is what we call an operations performance platform. So, basically operations comes down to two things, right? You've got your systems and you've got your people who are responsible for maintaining those systems, right? And so what we do is reconnect those two things together. We provide all the tools that you need to, make sure that the right people get on the case when something goes wrong.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So how did you guys get started?
Yeah, so we started back in around February 2009. So we've been going for a while now, and it's actually interesting. The three co-founders, we all had spent some time at Amazon. So for me, it was interning there back in 2005. And we saw how PagerDuty worked inside of Amazon at that time. And then kind of later on, we were off doing consulting work, and we had a situation.
Maybe you have to explain to them about how PagerDuty works on Amazon.
Oh, yeah. So at Amazon, I think this is the whole thing now, DevOps, right? The whole idea that you're going to have the...
you build it, you run it.
Yeah, you have the engineers who build stuff, and it's those same guys who are responsible for keeping the systems running, right? Yeah. That idea was at Amazon way back in 2005, and so we were seeing how our supervisors and things, just interns at the time, did things, and then when we went off and did consulting work on our own, we sort of looked around and how come nobody seems to understand this, and ended up building a tool very similar actually to one that was in Amazon to coordinate this interaction. Okay. We slept through a few alerts, so knew we needed to do that.
Yep. Yeah. These days, you guys do a lot of third-party integration. Mm-hmm. How does that work? How did you decide to do that? How do you connect with the other tools? Do you build APIs for them? So tell us about it. Yeah.
So our integrations, we basically have two main kind of integrations, right? We integrate with monitoring tools to suck data in, right? So for that, what we do is generally partner with vendors if we can, right? So these new monitoring tools that sort of run in the cloud, we'll work with them to basically have arrangements where they push information about critical alerts to us. Okay. For the kind of older style monitoring tools that you run yourself, we just build little plugins that you put into those tools. And that's how we get data from them. But then we also integrate on the other side, right? We integrate with things like chat systems, right? One of the big ideas in the operations community right now is chat ops, right? And this is where people want to see a whole stream of all the activity coming off their systems right in their IRC client or in their HipChat client or Slack or whatever. Okay. So we do integrations with a lot of tools like that as well to kind of funnel information the way ops engineers want to use it.
So building APIs is very different from building, let's say, visual interfaces and things like that. So can you tell us a bit about your experiences with that? Yeah.
I mean, so for us building, we actually quite intentionally only built the APIs for doing integrations with monitoring tools off the bat. We took a while to build the APIs for doing things like going through your incidents, extracting information out of PagerDuty, and that was exactly for what you were talking about in the previous session. It's so hard to iterate on APIs, right? You do it wrong, and you can version them, but you're still living with the old API forever. Right? Yeah. So yeah.
Okay. So you guys took quite a bit of investment recently. Mm-hmm. So tell us what you're using the money for.
Yeah, so I think the first thing we did with the investment, our earlier rounds, was really to build out our sales and marketing function. Company with 3 engineers as the co-founders. We knew the engineering well, but the sales and marketing definitely needed people to kind of come in and help us with that. Since then, we've actually really started ramping up our engineering hiring. That was sort of our project we started over the summer, and we're going to be continuing that very heavily next year. There's a lot of functionality we want to add to the product, and that's going to be kind of the big focus, I guess the big use of our most recent raise. Yeah.
Going back to the technology, do you guys run in sort of single tenant mode for a customer? Do you deliver software? Is it purely software as a service? What are different modes?
Yeah, so it's all multi-tenant. So we don't ship them software. We actually think a lot of our value comes from the fact that we operate the system ourselves. It's amazing how difficult it actually is to make phone calls and SMS messages around the world, right? Mm-hmm. There's constantly something going wrong. India will block SMS messages. You have to find a way around that, and we're able to handle that because we're providing a service rather than just box software that the customer would have to run.
There's no problem with, let's say, in terms of multi-tenancy. So had you think really hard in isolating customers from each other in a multi-tenant model? Mm-hmm. And do your customers want to dive deep on that? How do you do that?
Yeah, some customers do ask us a lot about that. I mean, we've taken just application level sort of protections to do a lot of that. We've thought about in the future how, particularly around that privacy discussion you were having before, customers in the European Union will ask about, how can we handle this, in compliance with their laws. That'll be something we're going to be working on in the future as well.
Tell us a bit about how is your setup in AWS? You guys run one region. Do you run multi-AZ? I hope so.
we definitely run multi-AZ.
Do you run multiple regions? Tell us.
Yeah, so we actually run multi-regions. So we run West 1 and West 2, our 2 main regions. It's actually interesting. We find that that works better. We used to be on the east side, but so many of our customers are actually AWS customers as well, right? So there'd be this interesting correlated failure situation that could potentially happen. So we instead moved west instead, so that when east is having issues, we have full capacity to be able to route alerts.
In Oregon, I assume.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys actually expose. I guess you do at this point, but yeah, Oregon and also the one in Northern California, I think is the other one.
Both of those. Yeah. So given that you really support sort of DevOps model, or you are the supporter of that, have you, and you've been in business now for a while, have you seen sort of DevOps change? Or is it the same as, let's say, 5 years ago? Or is there a change in how operations are being done?
Yeah, I think the biggest change is it's catching on in more kind of industries, right? Like it used to be, DevOps was something very talked about in kind of the startup world, and in big tech companies as well, right? But we're starting to see now is enterprises trying to adopt that mentality, right? Banks, insurance companies, just the guys with a lot of kind of big internal tools that they want to run, right? And I think what's happening there is something you were talking about before, right? It's that these guys are looking at the SaaS world, right, and going, how is it that they're able to iterate so fast and we're so slow, our internal development so slow, right? And it comes down to tooling, right? It comes down to processes, right? The guys, the SaaS guys are able to, quickly try something, put it out, deploy it the next day, right? Deploy it that day, right? And that's possible because they've adopted things like DevOps, right? You can't do daily deploys if you're not in that mindset, right? So
yeah. So do you do a lot of consulting in that sense as well? Do you train them? Do you tell them about DevOps? Do you are you the one where they look to for, please tell us how to do this?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. Customers, by the time they come to us, they're through kind of the biggest hurdle, I think, which is, coming to the conclusion that operations, right, is something that you can analyze, right? You can build tooling around and can be formalized, and you can be introspective about it. You can gather data and get better at it. So in that sense, we're very spoiled. Like, our customers are sort of self-trained by the time they come to us. Okay. There are a few things, though, that around alerting policies and that sort of thing that we do help people understand a little bit more.
So, of course, you guys are in the chain where things go wrong.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes, yes.
So, are there particular patterns of things that go wrong?
Yeah, I think, just trying to think about patterns that things go wrong. Usually it's when it rains, it pours, right? So I think what happens is it can be very hard when things go wrong for people to localize the problem, right? It's like just the whole panel of like alerts will just light up at once, right? And so being able to kind of guide the operations engineer to, okay, although you're seeing these 10 different problems, it's all really traced back to this one thing, and not distracting them with those like other 9 alerts. That's something we're working on, and we're going to be doing over future years.
Okay, so how do you do that? Do you do sort of automatic filtering of duplicates and things like that? Because this is one of the major problems we always had at Amazon as well.
Yes, yes.
At Amazon, DevOps is also distributed. Yeah, so there is basically one guy looking at one metric, which is number of orders a minute. Yeah, which is sort of the heartbeat of the business. Yeah, as soon as there is a drop in the number of orders a minute, there is something wrong, which means that about 300 teams get paged at that moment. Yep. Yeah, and they all get duplicate pages, and so. You found a solution for this problem?
Not when phrased in quite that way. That's something we're going to maybe in the future. I think that the big thing that we do is a lot of companies with very traditional NOCs, right, will have, when problems happen, it takes them quite a bit of time just to kind of filter through the okay, let's look at dozens of graphs to understand what's going on. In kind of the new DevOps approach, and what we encourage our customers to do is to do exactly what you're saying, is to instrument each service, right? Usually with metrics. I mean, you measure the high level kind of business metrics, but you also measure, like, for each service, what are the latencies, what are the throughputs? If they go out of bounds, send an alert. And by using a product like PagerDuty, you can actually send the alerts to the exact team that's responsible. So that kind of helps a little bit with the localization of the problem.
Cool. Have you seen the keynotes of the past days?
I've heard summaries of them.
Have you heard anything that you were particularly excited about?
So the database stuff that you guys announced, Aurora, yeah, that looked really interesting. Handling the multi-region database things have been very tricky for us. We've actually done it, not using SQL, we do a lot of it with Cassandra, but you miss out on transactional support.
You have to run that yourself.
Yes, we do, yes. We do have to run it ourselves. And the problem is it can be actually difficult in certain use cases to program against, right, because you don't have the transactions. Yeah. But we needed to do that because we're big believers in not relying on the failover process. Failover is one of those things that it works great 90% of the time, and then 10% of the time it's like, what just happened? Yeah. We can't afford that downtime.
Cool. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thanks. Chris. Hey. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks
for being here, Chris. Chris is the CTO of GitHub. Yeah. You all use GitHub? So, please have.
I'm actually the CEO, but don't throw eggs at me. I'm sorry. Yes.
How did you end up in this session?
I'm
Sorry. Can we? Oh.
I'm a developer. I've been a developer for a long time. I built a lot of GitHub, and we started GitHub for developers.
Okay.
So.
Anybody here that doesn't know what GitHub is? Good. We'll fix that one then, so you don't have to explain what you guys do. I think you guys, one side of your business that you are really well known for is that you do distributed development. Yeah, you have no one single office where all the developers sit in. So can you tell us a bit about why you decided to go that path and whether it is actually working for you?
Sure, yeah. We have about 60 to 70% of the company distributed, so outside of San Francisco, which is where our headquarters is. It started very organically. I mean, we were a bootstrap startup. We were scratching our own itch, and we didn't have an office. There was just a few of us. We were building GitHub. We used chat a lot. We used GitHub itself a lot. We used IM a lot. We'd get together to meet every once in a while. But mostly we were all in our own coffee shops and in our own homes building GitHub. So as we started hiring more and trying to grow the company, we already knew a lot of developers, like I'm sure you all do, who lived all over the world, who lived all over the country, people that we would meet at conferences like this. We thought we shouldn't just limit our hiring pool to San Francisco. Let's just find the best developers in the whole world. And so that's where a lot of it came from. We have a product that helps us work together all over the planet, and then we have a team that is all over the planet.
So it's basically eating your own dog food as well. If GitHub is also the hub that actually allows you to develop.
Yeah, we like to say we drink our own champagne. Okay, I'm not a really big dog food fan, but yeah.
Okay, fine.
But yeah, exactly.
Yes,
we use GitHub to build GitHub.
Good. But you know, most traditional organizations, you guys are how many developers now?
We're around 240 people, and about 100, 110 are developers.
So for most organizations, that means that you have created hierarchies and things like that. But you guys are flat or almost flat, or
almost flat.
How do managers manage their people?
It's hard. I mean, we rely a lot on video chat. We rely a lot on chat itself and chat ops, a lot on all sorts of communication mechanisms. It's really easy to walk down the hallway and tap someone on the shoulder, right? As any developer knows, you might not want that to happen if you have your headphones on and you're in the zone, right? So what we have to do is we have to take a lot of time and effort to make sure we are talking to each other. It's not easy, and every day we're trying to get better at it, but it's still a really big struggle.
Okay. You guys started off as Ruby developers, yeah? Are you still Ruby developers?
We have all sorts of developers. So there's a lot of Ruby, there's a lot of Rails. We also have C developers, we have Objective-C, we have Windows developers. I mean, the GitHub community is every language, and so we're trying to have our company reflect that as much as we can as well.
Okay. Going back to to your products, you guys just announced a very exciting product for the enterprise.
We did. Is anyone here familiar with AWS? We just released something on AWS. Yeah. So
no, it's not the AWS side. Of course, we can talk about that.
Yeah.
But, tell us about the product.
The product. So we have GitHub.com, which is, as you know, the largest software development community on the planet. But a lot of companies, they want to have their own development community, either inside their firewall because they're a university or a large business or something like that. And so for a while now, we've had an enterprise offering, which is a VM you can download and run on your own hardware. And 2 days ago, what we announced is an all-new version of GitHub Enterprise. It has a bunch of new features. We rebuilt it from the ground up. And one of the things we included is the ability to deploy it on AWS.
Yeah. And one of the first things that I saw coming by about the product that people said, wow, this is blindingly fast. So you guys must have done something really well in the engineering there. Or did you guys re-engineer? Is there something that you did really well there?
We have really great people, and yeah, speed was a priority. GitHub.com is fast, we think. In fact, the past few months, it's never been more available, it's never been faster. We put a lot of time and effort into our infrastructure because we don't want you to have to worry about that. And so going to AWS, it's a similar situation. We want to have a really solid foundation, really fast site, so you don't have to think about it. You can just worry about building software. So yeah, we spent a lot of time and effort trying to make the VM solid.
So the GitHub for the enterprise, that's something that customers have to run themselves, or is that something that you run for them?
You run it. We don't have any.
It's all hands off.
Yep.
It is all. So how much knowledge do people need to have about AWS to be able to run that themselves?
They need to have some knowledge, but what we find are the people that are running these enterprise instances are IT administrators. They already know AWS. So a big thing for us is we're very customer focused, as I believe you guys are as well. So a lot of our customers wanted this. They already have AWS. They're already running software on AWS. So this is something where a lot of people said, thank you, like we can take this from here. Yeah. So it's not very difficult now.
Okay. Some time ago, when I was talking to some of your guys, you guys were talking about the challenges of, for example, developers over in India having to commit into GitHub. Yeah, latency is a big factor there. Have you guys solved this?
We're working on it. I mean, it's difficult.
No. What are the real challenges? Is it reliability? Is it the protocol? Is it what's the biggest challenge there?
I think distributing the data all over the world is you want the data to be as close to the customer as possible, and that's something we're working really hard on that we haven't really figured out yet.
Okay, so basically, ideally, you would cache locally, more closer to the customer, and things like that. That's a complex architecture that you have to build there.
Right, exactly. We've had a lot of architecture problems and challenges. I mean, Git was not built to be this massive distributed repository with millions and millions of projects in the same place. We've worked really hard on that.
It's a real centralized protocol.
It's distributed, but it's very, the way we run it, so it's been a big challenge.
Okay. About the business, you guys made one of the biggest splashes in terms of funding that I think, well, not these days anymore maybe, but some time ago.
A couple years ago, yeah.
You guys took 100 million?
Yes.
While you guys were already running really fast at that moment. So what are you going to use the money for?
We're trying to change the way that the whole world builds software. We think building software together is just the best way to build software. And so we want to make that available to everyone. The open source community has really embraced GitHub, and it's humbling and incredible. But there's still so many developers out there, companies, universities, nonprofits, places like India, all over the world where they're not using GitHub. And so a lot of times they'll use it for open source in their free time, and they want to get it into their company, but they're having trouble. They need to convince their manager, they need to convince the CIO. So what we're really focusing right now is helping make that happen. We're trying to let anyone create their own GitHub community, either on the website.com or with the enterprise product.
Okay, what exactly needs to happen for that on your side to be able to enable that?
A lot of it is sales, a lot of it is marketing, a lot of it is press, a lot of it is getting this message out to people who haven't heard it, right?
It's really the community side of things.
Definitely, yeah, definitely. We need to. What is the case for the CIO? Like, it's easy for me to talk to a developer about why they should use GitHub because I'm a developer. I just say the things that I like about it. But to an executive, to someone who's maybe not a developer, there is a real business value out of using this product, and we need to be able to explain what it is and articulate it in a way they understand.
Okay. And is there also a software development side on that do you want to, what's the next step in sort of building out GitHub itself? You don't have to answer that.
But I would say that, yeah, I mean, a lot of Tuesday, this is what we're doing, right? We're trying to make GitHub great for everyone. Whether you're building a business, whether it's enterprise, whether it's open source, whether you're a company like Amazon, we want GitHub to work for anyone doing software development. And that's what you're going to see a lot more of over the next year or so.
Okay, cool. Have you seen any of the announcements that we've done in the past days?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anything that excited you?
Code deploy is cool. Code deploy is cool. It's funny because deploy seems like a simple thing, but as you know, simple things at scale are no longer simple.
Really
so
hard.
Yeah, it's an exciting product.
It's really in your edge of the world. Any thoughts on Lambda?
Lambda is, I was going to say Lambda, but it already came up. But no, I mean, that's just like tickles my brain in ways. I think the event-based stuff is a really fascinating way to think about the world. Yeah, it's cool.
Okay, cool. Chris, thank you very much for being on stage here.
Great.
Thank you for talking. Great success with the product. I think on as AWS, we love the new enterprise product. So we wish you good luck and good success with that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks, everyone. Great. Thanks a lot.
Thanks. If you want to be back in 15 minutes, we have here startup launches on stage. And so there will be 5 companies that will be launching here. Thank you guys for taking the time to be here. Please be back, or there's other sessions probably that you will like equally. Thank you.
Okay, awesome.